Hi guys, so today's video is going to be a character examination, a character bio of Kalaldin Stormblessed from the Stormlight Archive series. Given our expectations of fantasy books, especially epic fantasy, it makes complete sense that when we look at book reviews, we often see the focus on the world building, the politics, those sorts of things. The thing that always trumps everything else for me is how much I love the characters. And for me, while I do think that the Stormlight Archive does all those other fantasy elements really well, I love Kaladin so much, and I think it's the attention to detail with Sanderson's characters in this series that is why it sticks with me personally so much. So I wanted to kind of it's almost going to be like a book review, but a book review centered around a specific character. Throughout this video, I will have a time lapse of some character art that I did for Kaladin. There are some freakishly amazing artists out there who have already depicted Kaladin much better than I ever will, but I still just thought it would be kind of like a fun little addition. It is going to be spoiler free, but I know some people are incredibly sensitive to knowing anything about characters, events, anything like that. So while I don't consider anything that I'm going to say to be spoilery, if you want to just mute the video, watch the time lapse, that's completely fine. You do whatever you gotta do. But anyway, jumping into it, the trope that I think so many of us love and that we see in fantasy quite often is the underdog trope. That person who, in society, they've just been dealt a pretty sucky hand, and that is an understatement for Kaladin. He has so many things going against him. Their world has a very specific light eyes, dark eyes system, where the light eyes are people who are seen as basically just better. And so Kaladin already is set up to be on the lower end of their class system. But on top of that, Kaladin's father, who you get to see a lot of through flashback sequences throughout the story, is somebody who prides himself on caring for others, and he does this by being a surgeon and offering his knowledge to people for free. Something the Stormlight Archive does that it can be seen as a pro or a con depending on if you just like this particular writing element or not, or if you don't like how it's executed in here, but that would be the use of flashbacks to really zero in on a specific character. Kaladin is the character that you get these flashbacks for in the first book, Way of Kings, and so his father's role in shaping Kaladin and illustrating how Kaladin has so much going against him is something that you're going to see throughout the book. His father, like I said, he offers his services for free, but because this is not a profession that is typically associated with dark-eyed people, it's kind of seen as the same way you often find, like witchcraft is something associated with people who sometimes were more academic or more educated. And so other people who are also dark eyes sort of give the side eye to his family. And so not only do you have the light eyes looking down at them just for being born with dark eyes, but also other dark eyes are very wary of him, even though his father has dedicated so much time and effort into helping others. As a result, just by the nature of being this surgeon's son, Kaladin is also seeing a lot of this hesitation when it comes to trusting his family. He very much struggles with just fitting in general, and the way that it's depicted is just so tragic because you find that he so badly wants to fit in, and while he sees what his father is doing is heroic, he also sometimes gets frustrated with his father, and on top of all that, because his dad doesn't charge, he just relies on donations, they often really struggling. They already are struggling because they're the lower end of society, but they're offering a service for free and relying on donations from a group of people who are also already struggling, and so they often just don't have much at all. So Kaladin, his upbringing has shaped him into this person that sees so much of the faults in their society, in their world, and he's just at a loss for what to do about it because his father is somebody he's always seen as, well, this is an amazing person, this is somebody who elevated themselves, and look what it got them. As a result of seeing a lot of this, Kaladin, his life has kind of been laid out for him. His father very much is passionate about you should aim to help people, not hurt people, but the Stormlight Archive world is very military based. Their society, a lot of what keeps it going is this war with this group of human-like beings known as the Parshendi, and Kaladin has these grand dreams of becoming a soldier, despite the fact that his father has kind of shunned that lifestyle. It's still just, it can't get out of Kaladin's mind, especially because if a dark-eyed person in their world can elevate themselves enough within their military, they can eventually get to a better position in life, better than what his family has. The beginning of Stormlight Archive is very disorienting. You have a prelude, a prologue, you have a point of view of something in the past, and then you get Kaladin being a boss on the battlefield, and you're like, who's this guy? This is awesome. And then all of a sudden you get Kaladin as a slave, and then you also get these flashbacks of Kaladin as a child. So you get so much going on all at once, and what I really enjoyed about the series is how Brandon Sanderson was able to pace the flashbacks with things happening in modern day. So you're learning about Kaladin slowly in these flashbacks while also being with him when he's a slave, seeing how that one thing at the very beginning of him being this amazing soldier, well, what the heck happened? Because we had him over here in the past, and all of a sudden you have him as a slave, despite the fact that somewhere in the middle he was an amazing soldier. So what happened? And I think that the way that it's all pieced together, the reveals of his past, the reveals of him as a soldier, what happened, and the way that it just further makes Kaladin's underdog story that much more of that thing that you were like, yes, come on, you can do it. The one thing I see often as a criticism for him, but I also think personally it's a strength, is people tend to call Kaladin mopey. The man's a slave. I feel like he is entitled to not being super chipper, especially because as a slave, he is assigned to pretty much the worst possible line of work for slaves, which would be a bridgeman. And bridgemen are assigned in the military. They have these bridges that they run out in front of the military with no armor, no protection, because the setting is called the Shattered Plains, and there are all of these parts of the Shattered Plains that require these small bridges for the soldiers to cross. But the Parshendi, the enemy, shoots at them because why not? They don't want the soldiers getting to them, so they shoot their bridgemen, and it's a death sentence. If you get assigned to be a bridgeman, you are going to die, or the people next to you are going to die, and you see that very quickly. It is so incredibly bleak. So yeah, I feel like being a little mopey makes perfect sense. However, it does go beyond that in a way that I don't see done with as much care as perhaps in some other stories. Kaladin suffers from depression. And what makes it so inspiring is that even though he is dealing with these internal difficulties, even though he has all these external things working against him, he decides that he is going to do everything he can to make the lives of the other bridgemen around him better. The fact that he's able to do this and be this heroic leader, this person who just doesn't give up on his fellow man, he's so inspiring. I love him so much. I feel like now we're getting into not really an examination and more of just a gush fest, so sorry. The last thing I want to touch on with Kaladin as a character would be his relationship with other characters, the friendships that he develops with others, the leadership role that he takes on, and the way that he respects but pushes those around him is incredible. The absolute best relationship with Kaladin and another character, though, would be Kaladin and Syl. In their world, there are these beings known as Spren. Most of the time, Spren are just a reaction to something else. They don't really have a lot of ability to communicate or anything like that. But Syl, somehow, when you first meet Kaladin, you see this little being who's kind of, for lack of a better word, like a little fairy. And she sees Kaladin and she knows him. And he is really confused. Kind of throughout the story, you see her going from being very childlike to learning about the world around her. And she does this through her kind of bond with Kaladin. And Kaladin's communication with her is just the most precious thing, because here you have this guy who's kind of quiet and stoic and not always in the best of moods, and then you have Syl, who is just this precious little delightful being, and she's just so innocent and sweet and mischievous. She loves to pull little pranks and joke around, and their relationship is adorable. With a lot of the amazing fan art out there of Kaladin, you will often see him with Syl, so now you kind of have an idea of their bond. And there are so many, there's one particular scene with Syl and Kaladin, where Kaladin is really wondering if life is worth living. That's the scene that I've kind of tried to depict. And man, Syl in that scene, it's just so emotional. And I wanted, when in my depiction of Kaladin, I wanted to not actually show Syl in this moment, but Kaladin, almost like his reaction to the pain and also this little glimmer of hope that he finds in Syl, and then he becomes the hope for so many others. Anyway, I'm gonna just like get emotional if I keep talking. So thank you so much for watching. If you've read Stormlight Archive, please let me know. If you also have a gush fest ready for Kaladin, because him and Syl and the Bridgemen are all just the freaking best. But anyway, thanks so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.